Um, I'm just going to try and see if it's going live anywhere. So I think actually we've
Cool.
got a little live indicator which says that we are on air. Okay, cool. So 7 kilograms. You are truly Arnold Schwarzenegger. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a live version of the Smart Destiny podcast where we are welcoming our special guest and close friend, Depesh Mandalia. He has been on already. I can't remember what episode number actually you were. We've done so many.
Surely it was number one, right? Must be close to number one.
In terms of closeness to heart, number one, but you were number 32 chronologically.
That's close enough.
Exactly. And what we decided to do today was we decided to do a live version, stream all over the internet, and discuss Facebook ads right now in this climate, but also how Depesh overcame such a deadly virus that has taken on the world and has come back stronger, healthier, better looking, and more well endowed than ever. And so, without further ado, these guys are, yep, sounds right. Without further ado, Depesh, how are you, man?
I'm actually good. It was about, I think now 2, maybe even 3 weeks ago that I went through this. And, at the time, it was just when in the UK in particular, the discussions were picking up, but we were nowhere near where we are right now. So the lockdown situation was not a thing. Airports were open. Even back then, like flights were coming in from Italy, from China, etc. Like the UK basically said, there's no such thing. We're just going to carry on as we are. And yeah, then like my area in particular, so I'm in northwest London in Stanmore. Our local hospital, I believe, has one of the highest deaths in the country. The thing is, we're close to Heathrow Airport, so there's a lot of travel that goes around as well. And like when it kind of happened, I had a week of not feeling well. I had a cold, then I recovered. Then the weekend, I was just knocked out. It was fever, high temperature, just lethargic, painful limbs, all that kind of stuff. And then just two days, I was just wiped out. At that stage, we weren't really thinking about Corona because the UK were kind of adamant that it's not really here and all that kind of stuff. At that point, Italy was really taking off. So, both me and my wife said, it's probably just a flu type thing. But then it's like, I haven't had a flu for a long time. And also getting a flu kind of middle of March, I've never had that before. I've always had it like November, December, Jan time. And we called up the, in the UK, there's like a 111 support service. It's like pre-hospital kind of call.
Yeah.
And, that was all blocked. We couldn't do anything. I went online to do some research and they said, do not go to your hospital if you fear that you have Corona. Obviously, you don't want to pass it around. So I'm like, what do you do? I'm sick. I don't know if I've got it. What should I do? And my wife phoned up her doctor friend who's on the front line of all this. I talked to her through kind of what I'm going through and stuff. She goes, you've got coronavirus. I'm like, I was trying to understand, like, why are you so confident? She goes, the symptoms you're describing, I'm seeing this all the time. Like, she's based up in Manchester, so she's seeing it all in her local wards and stuff. And she goes, it is coronavirus. You need to. So this was her thing. Stay at home for 2 weeks, complete lockdown, all that kind of stuff. So we were actually in lockdown, I think about 2 weeks before the UK was in lockdown. So our lockdown finished just as the UK said the whole of the UK needs to lock down. And now that I've seen the stories come out of, first of all, when I went through this, I was like, I'm fine. I'm not 70 plus. I don't have health problems. I'm generally healthy. I'll be fine, etc. And then that seemed to be the thing 4 weeks ago, that as long as you're in the kind of at-risk category, then you'll be fine. A week and a half ago, a 36-year-old woman in my area died from this. That's quite close to my age. So that kind of, when I kind of look back and like that put hairs on my arms up, because then I realized it's actually, it could have been worse, because I went all the way down to having breathing problems, painful chest and stuff like that. The next stage is that you can't breathe. Your oxygen levels go down. Then you have to go into intensive care. I didn't hit that for whatever reason. And, I just think it's, up until that point, I wasn't so concerned about it. But then after seeing that actually younger people are dying and now kids are dying and stuff like that, that kind of just hit a bit more home as well. So yeah, that was an experience.
I cannot begin to imagine, and also like the uncertainty right now, like, where it's like, do you know what, I'm 99% sure that I definitely had it, and I had all of the symptoms, but still haven't got that confirmation, haven't got that thing. And I mean, you know, obviously, like, you know, I'm a prankster, I'm a mischievous guy. I like to make humor. You know, that's a supporting thing. And but I can assure everybody that's watching right now, I'm taking coronavirus very, very seriously. And it is not a laughing matter, but we will still try and inject some humor. So I'm just gonna ask,
let me share a bit of humor on
please
what
do.
happened after. So on the Monday, I think I can't remember if I posted on the Monday or Tuesday to Facebook to say this is what I went through, and someone messaged me and said, "Hey, there's a Harley Street clinic. So if anyone's in the UK or London, Harley Street is pretty high end for doctors and things like that." So someone messaged me, said there's a Harley Street clinic that's doing at home COVID-19 tests. He goes, if you think you've got it, go and order it. I was like, great. I ordered it, went onto the site. It was a standard Shopify store. I thought, all right, that's cool. Ordered the product, got the confirmation. It'll be between 2 or 3 days. Second day came, nothing. Third day, fourth day. By the, I think, fourth or fifth day, I emailed them and I said, look, I'm still waiting for this. What's going on? Didn't get a reply. And then about a day or two later, I saw a news article of the same company and the owner that had made, I think, £2.1 million worth of sales from this store, and they weren't able to fulfill because what had happened was he basically created a dropship store. That's all it was. It was a dropship. The Harley Street clinic was buying from someone else, which is dropship, and selling it direct. The problem was he didn't expect the demand to be as high as it was, and they just could not fulfill. And in the end, like, long and short is, I got a refund. But the worst thing is, I really needed a kit. The kit in particular would have told me when I had it, if I had the virus at the time, it doesn't test for antibodies. There's two parts of the testing. One is once you've got the virus, the second part is antibodies. So by that time, like a good week's passed, I've got no test kit, still can't get a test kit. But it was an anxious time. And, you know, I actually wrote a post in my group about this to kind of use that as an example for poor quality dropship, which is, I see a lot, this happen a lot of time where people fire up a store, they try and drop shit from China or wherever it is, and they can't fulfill. Then their page gets a low quality score on Facebook, and then their ad account gets shut down, and they have to start a new one, and they're blacklisted, and then it creates a whole spiral effect. And the thing is, as a business owner, you have to consider everything. If you think that you want to launch a store and you want to generate money and all that kind of stuff, you need to be thinking about customer experience and customer satisfaction. And I think that's a big thing that people just don't consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm torn. I don't know whether the guy is like a hustler, like a true entrepreneur for like jumping in. And I don't know if it's the guy that was literally taken to court the same week. I don't know if that's the same guy you're referring to. I think it was around the 2 million mark that he did, or whether it was just a flat out scammer. But kind of either way, if you can't fulfill, particularly in a you know, in an environment like this, just don't get involved. Now, for those that are tuned in right now, and this we're using StreamYard for those that are interested, which is new to both Depesh and myself. This is true. We are like breaking new ground and possibly breaking StreamYard. I'm not sure, but for those of you are live and tuned in, and we can see like a count across YouTube and Facebook, across multiple pages and stuff. It's really, really cool in that respect. Please do throw in comments. Any comments that you've got, any questions that you've got, please throw them into the chat box of whatever platform you're on right now, because we can actually see them. We can see them on our dashboard here, and we're going to answer them because we are in fact live as per the indicator, which is that way. I have to mirror image point. I'm actually just pointing at Depesh here, but above his head is the live thing for me right now. And we're going to get into Facebook ads as well, guys. It's not just.
I was just reading one of the comments and laughing on the side. It's quite funny.
Yeah. I'm just assuming that particular comment was tongue in cheek, but the other comments are nice, Depesh. People are wishing you well and saying that they're glad you recovered, and they hope the swelling in your penis has gone down by now, and so that's really nice of them. It's really.
Oh, was it that COVID? I thought it was the other one you're talking about.
It's the COVID, yeah. So so when you actually, and again, we're going to go into the into like the Facebook things, and we're going to touch and we're going to merge, and we're probably going to jump about with the questions, and I've got some great questions for you in a bit as well. But when it first kind of began to take over, was it similar to was it like flu-esque in terms of sort of low energy, want to lay down, that kind of thing, or was it just, or was it like something different, like it just different?
I felt it was quite different. So I first started feeling lethargic, but I also didn't feel hungry. Like I felt quite bloated and stuff. Initially, I thought maybe it was food poisoning because I just felt like I felt nauseous. I felt like something had to come out. I hadn't eaten, but even then, I didn't eat that whole Saturday. So that was the first thing. And then just the feeling lethargic. Maybe I'm run down. I ended up sleeping most of Saturday. And then the fever kicked in. Then the limbs started hurting. And then I was just literally slept most of Saturday, slept most of Sunday. And one of the interesting things is, I don't know if you guys are aware of the Aura ring. So I've got the Aura ring. And if I just show you my temperature spike there, that was the night I had a really bad fever. So you can kind of see the trends and patterns. So like prior to that and kind of after that, it was okay. And actually my temperature dropped and I was really, you can see there's a slight drop after or whatever it is. But
it's like a middle finger, that is.
Exactly. And that was a huge spike. My temperature went over 38 degrees. And then during Sunday, it started to decrease, just drinking lots of water, paracetamol, painkiller, and then just finding out what to do. So I spent most of the day just searching on Google to find answers because like I didn't know what to do. Should I, maybe it's a flu, do I worry, etc. Started to look at the NHS websites, fell down the rabbit hole of conspiracy stories and stuff like that. And, that was, is it 5G? No, it's not 5G. But yeah, it's just kind of just finding out like, what should I do? And then, like I said, ended up speaking to a doctor friend and she was like, within me just speaking for about 10 seconds, explaining what I went through, she goes, you've got it. You need to stay at home. You need to self-isolate, etc. So actually at that point, because the UK wasn't in lockdown, we had to keep the kids home. We had to tell people you can't come visit us. We weren't allowed to leave. And, one of the worst things, and for some people, it sounds a bit kind of, what's the word, like, so for me, the worst thing right now is that we've got no staff to help us at home. Like, I don't want to sound all posh and stuff like that. We've got no housekeeper, we've got no nanny. Yeah, all our gardeners and everything is gone. Like we have no nanny, we've got no cleaner, and we've got no personal assistant. Those three people help to keep the house ticking over. Now, if I tell you I've got 5 kids, we kind of need it. Like, there's no way me and my wife can run our businesses together without that home support. We're now into week 4 of not having that home support. And I'm telling you what, it is really, really hard work because we're still in self-isolation and it's literally me and my wife managing 5 kids and a couple of businesses and the house and everything else that goes on with it. And it's really, really difficult.
Wow. Guys, live right now, just put like an emoji or hit that like button or something. Show some kind of love and support for Depesh and 5
I would
kids,
appreciate that.
5 kids, and what is hopefully still quite a busy business right now. And so, would you like, obviously you run a Facebook ads agency, a very, very good one, one of the rare ones which is actually quite interconnected with Facebook themselves. We know this from the last podcast. You and Facebook are in regular communication, and they're asking for feedback on new features. You get early access, and they give you a heads up and insight into things. What have you seen across your clients? And does it follow the trend that a lot of other agencies, where like some clients are like boomed, some clients have dropped? Like what are you seeing just generally in the Facebook advertising landscape, like right now?
Absolutely. So we're fortunate that we only lost 1 client, but we didn't lose them per se. We put their contract on hold. And here's the other thing: like a lot of agencies are struggling with. So this was, in fact, we've lost 1 client that's gone on pause. Another client that's got 2 businesses with us. One had to pause because of the situation. One's still running. All 3 are local based. So number 1 is an events company. They do 6-figure spends, huge global kind of footprint. They're not running events, so they've had to zero their spend out. They're doing like some entertainment things where you can come and play VR and stuff like that. And they've had to pause their ad spend because no one is allowed to go and visit the VR. But the third business that's local is actually booming is a food delivery app, because right, everyone needs to deliver their food now because they can't go and collect it and stuff like that. So there are kind of pros and cons with some of the local businesses. But one of the decisions we took on early was we wanted to over communicate with our customers, find out our clients, find out what's working for them, what's not, what their challenges are, and find a way that we can consult them. So, for example, with the client that had to pause their ad spend, we put any kind of retainer on credit for, or I can't remember if it was 6 months or 12 months, but we are trying to kind of work with them on enabling them to come back. And you don't want to penalize them just as much as they don't want to penalize you as a client. So I see a lot of people that end up canceling the contract because their client can't pay or whatever it is. But I think it's a time for empathy right now, especially as an agency owner, to just show that you are there for your clients, because that pays back dividends months down the line. Then our other clients, so we have a client in the beauty space. Now, we've done okay with them since last August. They've been with us. But over the last 2 weeks, their cost per acquisition and their ROAS has been absolutely through the roof. They scaled their spend from about 10K a day to 50, 60K a day ad spend. Wow. To the extent that they've actually paused their spend because their factories can't keep up with demand through all the sales that they're generating. So there's some industries that are suffering, obviously local for obvious reasons, travel and tourism as well. But there's others that are booming. So supplements, health, and even home fitness and coaching and stuff like that, they've absolutely taken off. Right now with Facebook, the costs have massively dropped as well. So CPMs are down. And then you get situations where, and I think this is quite dangerous. I've seen a few agencies sharing their kind of insights as to what's happening with industries. So they'll share a report, and maybe they've got 20 clients, maybe they've got 50 clients, but they're saying like apparel is down, apparel's suffering, and this niche is suffering, and you should worry about that. How much data actually do they have on apparel as an industry to say that? Because we work with Facebook, and Facebook is sharing data with us that says apparel is still steady, but there's certain pockets. For example, they found that the 18 to 24 age range is actually buying more apparel online. This is Facebook. This is Facebook that has billions and billions of data points versus a small agency that have 50 clients, let's say, that are now saying, oh, you should stop advertising in apparel because it's a problem.
No one's wearing clothes right now.
Yeah. And I think that's quite dangerous. So I think we're trying to be level-headed with this as much as possible, using the data points. There are some agencies that share some really good insights, and that's amazing. But I would just tell other agency owners, store owners, whatever kind of businesses are out there, is just kind of think about the data that you're seeing and just start questioning what you're actually reading. Same happens with coronavirus. There's so many conspiracies that I hate my family sending me WhatsApp messages, all these conspiracies, and I can't opt out because they're my family. But you have to just take it with a pinch of salt. Someone's just asking, are people still going to salons? This is actually an online hair dye kit. It's personalized and stuff. So people can't go to salons. They can use this service to order online. So just to explain, there's another. Sorry, I'm answering your questions, Martin. But
go for it.
Apparel is basically clothing. Yeah, absolutely. Apparel is basically just clothing for anyone that's asking. So I think there's big opportunity to be had on Facebook. One other thing that Facebook reported was their experience of seeing recessions and data is that when the recession actually happens, the drop in spend doesn't happen straight away. So there's a kind of a phase. So phase one is recession, and we haven't quite hit that yet. There's huge layoffs. If you look at the US numbers, it's really quite scary. But the actual recession means kind of pulling back. That then happens in a second stage, and then spend starts to pull back as well. So there is still some opportunity. I think there is opportunities to launch new things if you've got things that will fit in with industries that will sell. But yeah, I just think use data points sparingly and kind of make sense of it for where you are, and just try not to be kind of caught up with too much noise as well.
Absolutely. The only true way to know exactly how your product is going to perform in this environment is to test, and like your product in this environment. And so, what kind of, like, on that note, what kind of copy and creative are you seeing? Like, what, like the commentary, the the angles, and what have you. What are you seeing working right now in this environment?
That's a great question because one of the big key right now is pivot. So pivoting your business, if it's not working offline, can you take it online? Pivoting your projects, your cost base, and revenue models and stuff like that. We're actually pivoting our digital products right now, just based on what's going on. The What we actually found. So, for example, we've got a client in the clothing space, and they saw the same thing, that costs were dropping, but conversion was dropping. And it came down to just pivoting those angles, the ad copy angles, based on the change in the consumer mindset. So if for example, someone is stuck at home, doesn't mean that they'll stop ordering online, but maybe what's changed is wanting to buy something because it's a nice to have versus is it actually essential for me right now? They're the kind of questions that are going on in people's minds. I think it will be a lot of kind of these drop shipping style products, which are gadgets and things like that, may be harder to sell because people will. Do I know? Think about the context. What context does your product have? And is there an angle you can bring in to attract a buyer, for example? So we're actually finding our top of funnel ads, some of them adapt, but a lot of it comes down to retargeting. So, for example, if you have a free returns policy, 30 days, 60-day, whatever it is, maybe it's time to highlight it a bit more because people want confidence that they can buy your product and return it for free and in lieu of having to go to a shop. So especially if you can buy your product in a physical store, trying to sell that online, that's one thing. Giving people reassurance around delivery, that's something we're playing around with as well in retargeting. And also our product page is just making it clear that despite some restrictions around travel, our products are still being delivered. That 3 to 5 day shipping time is real. Or if the shipping time has to change, be completely upfront about it. Don't try and sell people in on 3 to 5 days and then apologize via email and say, oh, it's going to take 15 days. That will really piss people off. Be upfront about it. Just say, due to demand or whatever it is, our shipping times are slightly delayed, but this is the state of affair. Or give them a discount and stuff like that. One of the things that Facebook did share from research is they survey. I can't remember how many people were, 1,000 or something like that, and they asked people what do they expect from online retailers during this whole crisis. They expected the number one thing to be discounts, and actually it wasn't the number one. Number one was to know how people are dealing with the situation, and then to kind of see a bit more transparency in what the businesses are applying if they're doing any local charity and stuff like that. And then further, like it was discounts. I think I've seen a lot of people offering discounts to try and bring people in. I don't know if that's really the motivator right now. So I think it's just understanding your consumer. You'll know your avatar better than anyone. But now think about their mindset. So they're now stuck at home. A lot of people in isolation. Why would they want to buy your product? What's the instigator? What's the kind of the spark to reignite their interest in your product? So that's how I'd kind of try and play around with ad angles.
I like that, and that's certainly reflective of like what we're seeing across the board and through our network and connections right now, and it is a tough one. Like there are certain retailers that are struggling. In our brand. Newbury, we're doubling down now on PR, and we're actually going to be featured in the Guardian, Express, and Mirror in the next 2 weeks.
That's
Actually,
massive.
two of those is this Sunday. That's 2 million viewers across those. And what was interesting in conversations with them is that right now they said that in the UK, newspapers are the number 2 most purchased item. Do you want to have a guess at number 1? In the comments, have a guess at number 1 if you like. So the number 1 purchased item right now in the UK above newspapers, which is at number 2. What do you reckon, Depesh?
I have no idea. Potatoes?
See, I was like, toilet paper, surely, toilet paper. So it turns out, and I know there'll be a lag between when we've just asked that and when comments start coming in. So, but actually, the number 1 most purchased item right now in the UK, above newspapers, according to the the guy trying to you know get me to be featured in more newspapers, is bananas. So apparently in the UK it's bananas. So it goes bananas and then newspapers. Now newspapers make sense because people have time on their hands, and but also, I mean, like I'm someone that follows like the Tim Ferriss sort of philosophy that news is kind of like what he says is you don't need to follow the news. Anything important, you'll hear about, just it will just come to you, kind of thing, in your news feeds or whatever. And if you ever feel like oh, maybe there's something I should know about, you could just literally ask a stranger, hey, I didn't catch the news this morning, is there anything I should know about? And you can have a great conversation with a stranger. But I think he wasn't talking about a sort of World War II level pandemic when he wrote that, and so right now I've definitely been following the news a little bit more to see kind of what's going on, what our government's telling us to do, what's happening, whether there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and so on. And I think that behavior is probably reflected across the world, and depending on what generation you are, if you're of the older generation, well, your news has historically always come from newspapers. And so for me, and this is actually an opportunity for people, and why we pursued this opportunity. Newspapers have been a declining media source for a while, right? And people have been getting their news online, or just generally not buying newspapers. And so their ad costs and competitiveness and all kinds of stuff has all been declining over that time. And now journalists are at home, and so they haven't quite got access to the resources and the stuff that they have to do their journalism at the very best. But it's also at a time where there's been an uptick in readers being like, I need to stay apprised of the news. I'm going to buy all the newspapers as frequently as often, and the newspapers will deliver now as well. They've all pivoted to home delivery, which is quite a smart move. And so we recognise that was quite a good opportunity to get eyeballs with the right angling. And so I guess one of the things, like you said, is you understand, like the people reading, watching right now understand their business better than anyone. But obviously there is a need to pivot, even if you're just sort of acknowledging the current climate in some way. One of our advisors, so a guy named Josh Elizetti, he's on the board of advisors for Newbrew. Their ads, they're a teeth whitening brand, and their ads have pivoted now to be like, make sure your teeth are white for the next Zoom call, right? Because everyone's on Zoom, and one of the conspiracy theories is Zoom did all this, right? Bad Zoom kind of thing. But even that is a pivot. It's a change in messaging and a change in angle. And so certainly to add on to what you're saying, and I want to go right back to you, that pivot could just it could be as small as changing the wording in your ad, but it could also be like, where are the impressions right now? Like what's going on in this world. Swallow. Big swallow then. So what advice have you had? So in your communications with Facebook lately, what advice has come in from them that you not only have received, but also you're like, yeah, no, you've filtered, and it's the good stuff that's come in?
Well, one came in today as a reminder, which was like, if you're running a local business and you can't drive business into your store, why not sell gift vouchers online? Like, it was just such an obvious thing that Facebook picked up because some retailers started doing that. And it's just thinking about ways around that. So, for example, we're speaking to the events company about doing lead gen, about doing virtual events, for example, and finding ways to keep the business ticking over, because if you absolutely stop advertising right now and you turn on in 6 months' time, you've lost 6 months of custom, or at least building up ready for people to buy as well. So I think that's something which Facebook have talked about, which is, they're that CPMs have dropped. I know there's conspiracy stories of Facebook controlling CPM, but I think this is a great example of demand has dropped because the advertisers, especially travel and leisure and local, have pulled out of the auctions. CPMs have dropped automatically. This is just the nature of it. At a time going into the end of March and into April, traditionally where CPMs actually go up because competition increases. It's end of the year for a lot of companies, they dump money in. So the CPMs are low. So the question is, how can you take advantage of that right now? If you can't sell e-com, whatever you're doing, can you lead gen? Can you build relationships? Can you nurture them, et cetera, et cetera? So I think that was quite pertinent. Other things are around just kind of keeping your customers informed, like as an agency, because we're part of the agency support team, keeping one thing that I've actually spoken to Facebook about is that we're trying to be over communicating it as well. Just keeping the information going to our clients, make them, because the thing is, as a business owner, there's so much noise going around. You don't know what to believe, what to trust, what's true, what's not, etc. So we want to be the voice of reason. We want to share balanced arguments with clients and share our observations as well as what Facebook is sharing. So, you know, if a client has had a win, we'll share it with other clients, for example, and see if it sparks ideas in them as well. But yeah, at the moment, I'll be honest, like the amount of info coming through from Facebook, we can't keep up. So we actually have one of our juniors almost dedicated to just going to visiting all their webinars, reading through all their white papers, their documents that they're sharing. And we're creating a weekly, I share a weekly breakdown of the key things that we've seen, and we just share that out to clients. So it just becomes a bit more digestible.
Oh, wow, that's nuts. But at least Facebook are following their own advice in terms of the sort of over communication to a certain extent. So those of you that are watching right now live, this is live, okay, and this is the very first episode of the Smarter Destiny podcast that we've actually done live, and it's completely impromptu, and it's across like 5 different places right now. And so it means that I can do things like this. Questions that you put in the comments field, it doesn't matter if you're on YouTube or on Facebook, across the groups and the pages, it all comes into our screen right now. So if you've got a question about digital marketing and your business and digital marketing, like getting traffic, getting success, getting sales right now for your business, even an offline business potentially, now is a great time to ask that question. Between Depesh and I, we can cover a lot of bases. We've sold to a lot of people. So let's start with this one from Kanyan. I'm going to guess that's how you say it.
Cool. So input on promoting Facebook group during this time. So first of all, technically you're not allowed to directly promote Facebook group via ads. But in any case, like I've seen ads in my newsfeed where people are doing a likes campaign to like a page, or they're doing a campaign to say join our newsletter. That's not why people want to like your page. It's not why someone wants to join your newsletter. It's not why someone wants to join your group. People say you will share discounts, promotions, or insights and stuff like that. People are looking for what we call the sizzle, not the sausage. So it's the kind of outcome of, if for example, you're cooking chicken, for example, they want the flavor that comes out of it. So you don't sell them on that. In the UK, for example, Marks and Spencer's did some really, really good ads, or TV ads a few years ago selling food. But the way they did it is they just used tantalizing words and photography and videos and stuff that really made you want to go and buy that food and eat it. That's a whole concept of marketing, is to try and build that. So if you're promoting a Facebook group, what's the outcome? Like, what's the reason why, not why someone wants to join, but what's the reason they stay? Like, it's just a slight shift. You don't want them to join, but figure out why, if you've got an existing group, what is the delivering? What's the transformation or the output or the change or the benefit? Use that in your ad and get people to, I personally would use some kind of lead magnet to get them into your email list to say, hey, by the way, we've got community of some, whatever it is, and then get people into the group that way. So that way you've got their email address first of all, and then you can push them into your group, get them to like your page and whatever else you need from that as well. There was a question on local biz digital marketing. So like I said, local businesses, a lot of them are struggling. So I'm not sure what your question pertains to, because if you're promoting something and the establishment can't take business, then that's a problem. But like I mentioned before, if they can sell gift vouchers, then that's an option. if you can somehow get them onto a list and engage them. For example, let's say the local business has a local community, whether it's Facebook or something else, get their email address, trying to get them into that community and then kind of share stuff with them. So I think he's followed up and said restaurants, for example. A lot of restaurants have actually started to up with companies like Deliveroo, DoorDash, and all these different companies because they can't accept people into their establishments. They do want to keep operating, but one of the things that kind of caught us up was as we started to scale up this food delivery app and we were selling more and more online, the actual restaurants would struggle for ingredients because the delivery network around them wasn't as operational as it should be. So then a lot of restaurants suffered with that as well. So like with the example of the dropship guy from Harley Street, just bear in mind your kind of supply and demand and whether you can still kind of fulfill and don't annoy your customers.
I think that's a fantastic answer there. And I'd like to throw in a couple of extras particularly on the restaurant front. So one thing that I've seen is certain restaurants that they've pivoted to do home delivery, or they're doing home delivery. They've kind of stood out by offering things like a little bottle of hand sanitizer and a roll of toilet paper with what they're delivering, as well as a lot of them of just getting rid of like delivery fees and things like that, really reinforcing that the delivery is contact free and at a self distance, things like that. And then the other thing that I would suggest as well, particularly if you're in this space or you're in a kind of business that isn't necessarily operational right now, and it's building on what Depesh said earlier on, is you can sell in the future. Okay, so for example, Vegas, I have it on good authority right now, whilst Vegas is very, very quiet, and we can imagine that, they're actually, as a year, like the whole year, in its complete form, they're actually going to have a pretty good year, right? It's not going to be their best year, but they're still going to have a pretty good year because all they've done is just moved everything into the future, right? Because we know that this will be over. They've got insurance for the various events and so on they're throwing, so they can just push it out into the future. So they're just taking bookings for the future. And so what you can do with your local businesses is you can incentivize users to book out in the future, or you could give them the option to buy gift cards for booking in the future, but at a discount on those gift cards. And so you can still get money coming in now, but you're sort of the service will be delivered in the future. So hopefully that helps. But guys and girls that are on live right now, please do keep asking those questions. As I said, they show up on our screen here, and I can even make it show up on your screen through the power of this wonderful StreamYard app.
Related to what you just said, one thing I shared on my, I think it was a newsfeed or group recently, was just imagine once the lockdown is lifted, how sold out events will be, conferences, concerts, everything that you cannot access right now is absolutely going to sell out. So it's better to try and sell out now with a bit of flexibility to say, we're now booking for September, but if anything goes wrong, we'll be flexible. But as soon as the lockdowns are lifted and people go back to normal, everything's going to sell out, flights, holidays, everything. So you can either wait and then possibly lose out because lots of your competitors are already booked and their sales are growing, or you can think about how you can prep now and keep things ticking over as well.
Exactly. All of those things that we're all like dying to do right now in our isolation. We're going to go straight out and do it. I'm going to hit so many cricket balls once I'm out, Depesh. You have no idea. Those balls won't know what's happened. We are in the podcast, and I do have some we're in season 2. I do have some season 2 questions. So whilst obviously any questions from the people tuning in right now, please do ask those questions. They will come in the comments, and I can squeeze them in. But in the meantime, Depesh, you asked season 1's questions, but are you ready for season 2 question round?
Let's do it.
Are you 2 thumbs up ready? You remember that.
7 kg ready.
I love that.
Let's do it.
It's not a brag. Right, okay, let's do it. Question number 1. What superhero would you be and why?
That's an interesting one. I would be Superman because I think he doesn't use his talents as good as he should be. The guy, he should be absolutely immune to everything. Like I know in the comics he ends up getting battered and beaten often and stuff like that. And unfortunately, he's scripted in such a way that he's so formidable that they make some of his decision making a bit poor, just so that enemies can have a chance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But with his abilities, I think I'd probably go for Superman. Also, one of the reasons is, one of the I read an article actually on Quora. I love Quora just for random stuff, and they were saying like the difference between Superman and Batman. So like Superman sees the best in people, Batman sees the worst in people. Superman likes to forgive, Batman punish and stuff like that. So I think from that kind of inner feeling, I would be more of a Superman because I like to give people a chance. I like to see the best in humanity and stuff like that. So I try to reform, forgive and stuff like that as opposed to punish and whatever. So yeah, I think I'd go with that.
Nice. Question 2. What's one thing that people often incorrectly assume about you?
That I'm in control. I had a message 2 weeks ago saying, "Can you share with us like how you're managing to keep your business and life in check and stuff?" I don't know what gave this person the impression that my life's in check. It's not. Like I just explained to you earlier in the call, I've got 5 kids. I've got no help at home. We're in complete lockdown. See that we run. We've got an info product business. We've got e-com and affiliates, and some real estate business as well. There's a lot going on in our lives, and there are only 24 hours in a day, of which, unfortunately, I have to give up 6 to 8 to sleep. So actually, if you then break that down and look at the time that the kids need, because kids need attention, our kids are all quite young. I don't have much time to do work right now, and work being new projects, ideas, launches, things like that. Just this week, we've had to reposition a lot of our strategic plans for Q2 and really dial them back in because it's taken its time. My time is so limited, and my family and kids come first, and I just need to help out there. So yeah, I'm like the image of the swan that's gliding along the kind of lake, and it looks so cool from the outside, but underneath it's paddling furiously away just to keep itself going. So yeah, that's me.
I love that, and that's so authentic and real. Because I think there's definitely been some mental anguish across the world, and I've said this a few times, like live, like publicly. Every single fucking person in the world is feeling a higher level of emotion right now.
Absolutely.
You are normal, right? There are composed people, right? And we had Roland Fraser on for an expert call for the Cartel's mastermind yesterday. I was gesturing to my hat down there with the logo. You can't see that. I don't know why I did that. But we had him on, right? And he started the call brilliantly. He said like, "So how are you, Roland?" And he said like, "Which story do you want?" Because obviously the guy owns like 1 billion businesses, and he's like, "Do you want the story of how all of the businesses on this hand are struggling right now, and this is dropped and this is doing, and we've just rescheduled TNC, which took a fair amount of work, by the way." Or do you want the story of how this business is crushing it and how we've just added this many members? And he said, there's 2 sides to every story, but I said the thing about emotion, and he's like, yeah, of course, right? Like everybody right now is feeling that, and so the fact that you've answered that question so authentically, saying the thing that people are incorrectly assuming is that I'm in control. And I think don't assume that about anyone. There is a ton of emotion going on right now. And it's impactly. Like we have our shit in order here at home. The businesses are solid. They can tick through. They can survive this. But like things that I didn't expect was we're doing some deals with some US businessmen at the moment. Like we've got a sale going through. We've got an investment going through, and so on. And but these people are real people with emotion. And there was on one single day 2 big deals came through and suddenly like changed. Just because it's a person at the end of the day making the decisions, that person has emotion. It's completely understandable. And yeah, certainly I'm trying to practice a little bit of empathy, I guess, when we are rarely out in public and, self-distancing and so on. And someone does something and you're like, what an idiot. And then in your head and you're like, they're going through stuff. Everyone's going through stuff. Cut them some slack. Anyway, question 3: what is the most, and this is controversial by design, what is the most pointless subject taught at schools, and what would you replace it with?
Interesting. I that's a really real tough one. I think, yeah, I don't know. The thing that comes to mind is probably something like geography. I think it was interesting, but if I had to lose something, it would probably be geography.
Do you mean like right now when no one's traveling, so it's not that
Well, there is that as
just
well, but
generally?
like learning about clouds and mapping and all that kind of stuff, it was just like, even back then, it was not that interesting or useful, and I don't think really it's been useful to me. So probably geography.
Are you telling me that learning how rivers, the bends in rivers are formed, hasn't helped you with your Facebook ads?
Not Facebook. It's maybe helped me with. No, it hasn't helped with anything.
It hasn't helped you. So what would you replace it with?
I would replace it with something that actually teaches skills beyond how to be a 9 to 5 worker. Like I think you'll hear that from most entrepreneurs. I'm teaching my kids as much as I can around the fact that you can do things without following the path that a lot of people see as normal. You can work from wherever you want. The online world is a big opportunity space. My eldest is 12. We're trying to spark his interest in e-com and Facebook ads and dropship, and he wants to start his own dropship store. So that's amazing. And I think if there's an opportunity for kids to see the possibilities, I actually saw a video from someone. Who was it? I think it was I can't remember. But we are teaching kids about creating their ideal career path before actually adults. It's a concept. Kids are at school. Kids become teenagers, and we're asking them, "What do you want to be? What university subject do you want to go into? What career do you want?" Before they've actually even lived. That's actually just messed up if you think about it. So I think I would want something which shows people the possibilities. Doesn't say, you can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor, you can be an engineer, computer science and stuff like that. Because even back in my days, I felt like that was quite a stressful thing to think about when I was 16 and 17, and I was asked, like, if you go to university, what do you want to charge? What do you want to be? I literally went through and looked at the highest paying jobs and said, I maybe want to be that or maybe that. That's kind of the mindset of it. And I think that's something which I would want to introduce, is show people whatever their passion is, you can follow it in different ways.
Nice. And I think that's a great answer. And so we've had a couple of questions come in. So remember, guys that are streaming in live right now, you can just literally just type in the comments any question that you've got about running a business in this climate, about Facebook ads, particularly advanced tips, about digital businesses, selling online, anything like that. Just throw it into the question box, and between Depesh and I, we will get that answered. And what I can do as well, whether you can tell me if you don't want it on, but I can do things like this, boom, 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 and I can get the question that has been asked right there on the screen for all of you. So, what's your number one strategy? Not your number two, your number one strategy, Depesh, for engaging people online who are totally unaware of your brand?
So there's two things I look at. Number one is what's the problem I'm solving or opportunity I'm creating at the highest level? Like, your product or service has to do one of those. Then the second thing is, how well known is my product or service as well? Because that dictates what your funnel looks like and what your top of funnel looks like. Take, for example, if you've invented something new and it's a solution to a problem people didn't realize they had. Like, for example, I have the Aura ring. For me, I can't imagine not being not being without it. But that was a problem I didn't know I had. Like, now that I can track my sleep and my trends and all that kind of stuff, like, I can't imagine not ever doing that again. But that problem was created by someone showing me a better outcome. So a solution to a problem I didn't have, but a new opportunity, which was not just you can track your sleep, but that you can improve your lifestyle by being in control of your sleep. So the first thing is, like, the Aura band, for example, it's not a mainstream product. Like, first of all, you need to explain what the thing is that, like, there's some tracking stuff going on in there that tracks your whatever it is. You need to explain that this is a problem that is worth solving. For example, and then go ahead and start solving it. So if I was selling this, for example, I would actually niche down. Here's the thing. If you're selling this to an entrepreneur, or if you're selling this to a mum who's just had a baby, or just any parent, there's so many different angles for this. So as an entrepreneur, the more sleep you have, the more energy you have. The more energy you have, the better decisions you make, more focus you have. There's that whole process. So if I was going for an unaware audience about my new ring for entrepreneurs, then I would focus in on what their problem is. So it's not necessarily that I'm introducing the ring to them. I'm highlighting and amplifying a problem that they have, which for many entrepreneurs, especially in the kind of small to medium space, it is that lack of focus, energy, time to sleep, and stuff like that. Now, if I can highlight that to you as a problem and really amplify it by showing you how bad it can get, the lack of sleep, how it impacts your health, your decision making, your revenue income, then introduce the solution, then that's the way I'd kind of bring them into my funnel.
Amazing. And so Glenn got the memo, and Glenn is now, featured. Boom, spotlight right there. So Glenn asks, "What's your process?" And actually, I'm going to jump in on this one first, if that's okay, Depesh, because one of the things that I've been talking about for forever really is about biohacking, life hacking, and efficiencies, particularly when running a business and spinning plates, right? And I refer to a spinning plate might be your family, a spinning plate might be the pressures to stay fit. A spinning plate would certainly be business and people that taking your time, right? And some of those plates, just as a side note, some of those plates are made of glass and some of those plates are made of wood. And what I mean by that is some of those plates can afford to fall off a couple of times and they might get a little chip here or there, and some of those plates, when they fall, they are destroyed completely, which is a metaphor I use as well for about prioritizing. If you have to let one of those plates drop, let the wood one drop, not the glass one. And it might be that the wood one is kind of like letting down a friend over something, over an arrangement or something, and explaining that, as opposed to like letting a family member down or something really quite serious. But going into your actual question about handling high stress situations you're presented with while running your business, this is such an important thing. So one of the things which changed my life very, very early on was a book called Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And Hal Elrod talks about savers, and it's a very, very short book. I recommend it to everybody, but it's a very, very short book. And savers is an acronym for processes that you should do at the beginning of the day. And I refer to your morning routine as putting on your body armor. Okay, so your body armor, so that you can take the day. You know how everyone's experienced it, where you've woken up and kind of probably it wasn't a great habit, but you've woken up, you've immediately checked your phone, and you've got a bad news email, and it fucks up your entire day, right? Putting on your body armor by doing these kind of things is what protects you from all of those stuff, so that you can deal with them. So savers refers to, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, S is scribing, A is affirmation, V is visualization, E is exercise, R is something else which I've forgot, and the other S is silence, right? So the two S's interchangeable, silence, like meditation. But I would say, as an absolute minimum, to gather your thoughts, journal. Okay, and if you don't know how to journal, look it up. But it's essentially just writing on a piece of paper, safe in the knowledge that no one else is going to read it. Just writing on the piece of paper, like what's on my mind. Oh, I'm kind of thinking about this, maybe I'll do this. And just, there is no editing, it is just writing, because it slows down your thought to the speed that you can write. Meditation, there's various different forms of meditation. There's various different forms of breathing. So I'd definitely look into meditation. I'd definitely look into apps like Calm and Headspace and guided meditation, and it's all over YouTube and so on. But if you want to go further than that, you can look into things like binaural beats for relaxing, which is sound waves which actually change the frequency of your mind and pick the frequencies which promote stress release, things like that. I'd look into box breathing as well, which is a technique that the SEALs use for reducing stress. And if you're really, really advanced, I would look into breath work, deep breathe. It's called rebirthing. breathing, and there's phenomenal stuff on that, and Wim Hof kind of touches upon it. It's very, very similar the way he does his breathing, but I would say journaling and breathing are big ones, and also high intensity exercise, particularly early on in the day. Is there anything you want to add to that one, Depesh?
Don't think I can. That was pretty awesome. So I guess I'd kind of ask for a bit more context on what is the high stress situation. So there's internal stresses that are going on inside your head and stuff. Then there's external stress like revenue, profitability, your team, and stuff like that. And I think what I like to do is just separate the two out. So, for example, if I'm high stressed because I haven't slept for the last few days, my baby's teething, like that, then the solution for that is going to be quite different to another stress, which is my team have problems or my clients or revenue and stuff like that. For the external ones, I use planning, going back to my goals, realigning and things like that, which we're actually going through right now. We're realigning our goals for Q2. We've had to adapt and pivot things that we're doing. That for me is easier. You can speak to your team, or whether it's yourself, just whiteboard and put your ideas back down. If it's internal stresses, then it comes down to energy and momentum. Momentum for me is quite critical, because when I'm in flow, I produce my best work. Sometimes that flow happens early in the morning, sometimes it's late at night. Like once I kind of get my energy levels back up, and I may or may not eat tubs of ice now and again. But it's about just keeping what's working for you and focusing on that. So, things like even when I have my vitamins and supplements in the morning, that for me is part of my morning routine. So like I have my green juice and I do my exercise, and it gets my mind going, gets my body kind of the heart rate up and stuff like that. It really helps me to get my day going, especially if I feel like I'm low on energy. So I need to try and pick that up, because when I'm high on energy, I'm more able to be productive, have better conversations, make better decisions and stuff like that. So for me, it's just separating it out, whether it's an internal or external, and then deciding how you tackle it off.
Great question, Glenn, and super relevant to now. So I've just figured out that the questions I'm asking you from the podcast, I can also throw onto the screen, so that
cool.
people that are tuned in without sound can also read like what's going on right now. So this question from a younger looking chap is what's one mistake what's one I had so much hair back then. What's one mistake you made in your life, and what did you learn from it?
Where do you start? I mean, I think when I'll talk about agency. So I started an agency in 2017, and I made a huge mistake because I went from client side into freelancing, into contracting, running my own affiliate marketing business and stuff like that, into thinking that because in 2017 I was good at Facebook ads, and I'd been a chief marketing officer, and I've run big teams and stuff like that, and I've worked with many agencies, that I could run an agency. And I think the biggest mistake there was not hiring someone with more expertise or experience, or an operations director, or even a CEO or something like that, that could have taken the strain of operations away from me, because I'm a strategist, I'm a marketer, I like sales and growth and stuff like that. I learned that I'm not a person when it comes to running an agency. In the first 6 months of running it, we almost ended up closing it down, because I was working 15, 16 hours a day, just keeping everything going. We had too many clients, we recruited too fast, processes, and everything was a complete shambles. But we were still giving our customers a great performance, because for me, that was all, the be all and end all. We were charging ridiculously low fees and things like that, but we made it work. And in the end, I had a project manager who came in and just fixed the whole thing out. He built the processes, helped to rebuild our plans, our structures, and gave us operational stability. And I think that was a reminder to me. And I remember actually before I started the agency, I had a chance to join someone's agency accelerator, and I thought, how difficult can it be to run an agency? And I made the mistake of not doing that. So with hindsight, I would have gone back and either gone through that accelerator, or actually just hired someone to do the operational part, and would have been in a much better position faster.
Great answer. And so, yeah, a reminder to those tuned in. Don't forget, you can just comment whatever platform you're on right now, and we're across like 5. You can just comment. You can just drop a comment, a question, and it will come in. Or indeed, you can do what the legend Danny is doing and actually tag people that could benefit from this live stream right now. That's a great thing to do for helping people that that actually might be dealing with one of these problems or might need a little bit of support right now. And of course, tagging them, it doesn't matter that they're coming in at this point in the show. There's, by tagging them, they can actually watch back this video because they're aware of it. And so the next question right now is this one. What book do you read, or gift the most? That's a terrible typo. Gotta fix that.
What book do I read or gift the most? Interesting. I think context matters here. So I think in terms of reading, I guess for me it's religious. So like I read the Quran, so that kind of is possibly the book that. In terms of gifting, I don't think there's one in particular that I would say I gift more than others. I think it's more down to context. So if it's a friend or family, it might be something more about I don't know, just something that's going to help them personally. If it's business related, then it will be business. So I think gifting is a bit more difficult, but yeah, that'd probably be my mediocre answer to that, unfortunately.
Rephrasing, what business book springs straight to mind as a valuable book that you've read or listened to?
I think the ones that kind of ring true in terms of the impact on me are things like Ogilvy on advertising, Scientific Advertising by Hopkins, the Boron Letter, things that have helped me to shift my mindset in terms of marketing and sales and get so much better at it by leaning on the shoulders of giants, essentially, people that were way ahead of their time. And I've just adapted that knowledge into the digital space. So I think there'd be a few. The Go Giver, I don't know if you've read that book. That's such a good book. Like when I read that, it was just such a enlightenment at the end of it, and I thought, wow, that I loved it. Like I wish that I could have continued reading it. That kind of book, which has so many valuable lessons from a business context, but also from a kind of life learning perspective as well. And then one thing I love to study is also behavioral psychology. So books like Predictably Irrational and things like that, which helps me to get more deeper context behind consumer psychology and how to link marketing to product and kind of create everything that we do right now.
I love that, and I love it when someone says a new book as well. And that Predictably Irrational book is certainly a new
Dan Ariely. Like read everything he does. He's just an amazing person.
Right, so Glenn says, what do you look for in a person when hiring people who have potential but may not be up to speed or are inexperienced?
Yeah, so I've been through some management training courses in my corporate life, and one of the things they teach you is when you're hiring, think of it like a bicycle. So a bicycle has a steering wheel at the front, and then the power is actually generated from the back. Now, the way that you kind of look at it in terms of a hire is the back wheel is harder to change in someone because that's their core. That's the thing that makes their personality, their mindset, and things like that. The front wheel can be steered. So for example, if you find someone with, we talk about growth mindset, that's a real kind of go-getter, is enthusiastic, self-learner, etc. That's their back wheel. That's their drive. That's their kind of personality. Then their front wheel is their experience. Like, are they able to navigate the job? Do they have the experience and stuff like that? If you're trying to, and there's two parts of this, depending on the type of role, either you want to hire someone who has both strong back wheel and also front wheel, and the fact, they've got experience, they know their role, etc., etc. The problem with that is, for example, if I'm going to hire someone to do Facebook ads, I have a very specific way of running my ads. So, I have a program called the BPM method. It's structured, it's process based. If I hire an experienced Facebook marketer to come in, and I have to teach them the BPM method to become good enough to run it for our clients, it's the hardest thing to do because they've learned so many bad practices that I have to make them unlearn everything. And it takes them twice as long to become sufficient and proficient than it does for me to hire a junior that has all the core personalities. And, one of them is don't be asking me for basic questions without Googling it or checking my community or checking the FAQs and stuff like that. I don't have time for that. If you come to me with a genuine question and you've researched it and you don't know the answer, I'm all over it. I'm going to help you out. That kind of mindset makes a huge difference to me, because my day is so rammed, it's so busy with my kids, my family, businesses, etc. I want to be focusing it on the best impact I can. So if I can hire a junior that has the right core and I can train them up and steer them in the right direction, then that's going to be far more beneficial. But obviously, if you have an immediate need and you need to hire someone fast, let's say, for example, you're in an agency, one of your media buyers has left and you need to replace them ASAP and you need to hire someone with experience, then obviously you go for someone with that more experience, and then you work on adapting them to your ways of working. So my biggest thing is I look for personality and mindset and things like that over anything else. And that for me helps to build a team that has the same kind of core and value that you do as well.
Great answer. And I don't want to pronounce his name wrong, but Badira says that Depesh, you're the man. And
you're the man, you're the man.
There you go. He's got the apostrophe in the right place, so I appreciate that in the you're. So another question from this handsome bloke: what silly thing should people do more of?
Dance. So I was, I'm in my office right now, and my kids were kind of doing their work. They're all stressed out and stuff. And I literally just said, stop. I've got a TV screen up there where I can have my laptop here and I can project up there. Put a dance video on, and all four of us were just dancing and just having fun and stuff. And I think it just released the tension that they had, because at the moment with the lockdowns, we're having to homeschool and it's stressful, and then the kids start arguing and stuff. And they felt more energetic, their heart was pumping, and then they felt happier after it as well. So I think that's something I should do.
I think that's a great answer, anyway. And I'll echo that. I echo that answer as well. Our 2-year-old Saxon, he's a big fan of Love Generation by Bob Sinclair, and what we do, we've got it like on speed dial, if you will, on the Sonos, and we just hit that, and that do the starting bit, and he is bopping straight away. He's coming in, and we're all just silly, throwing our arms, throwing shapes, not giving a crap, and just you feel good, right? Yeah, after that, you know. Dance like only your family is watching. Let's go on to the next one. So this is a new one for season 2. If you could change one world problem with one wish, what would it be? And you can't say Corona because that's a cop-out.
No,
obviously it's important.
Yeah, I mean, for me it would be hunger, like the world hunger thing. Like, I still can't get my head around in like where we are right now, why there's still hunger around the world. So there's so much giving, there's so much charity, there's so much wealth. Like this is one thing that I just can't wrap my head around as to why this still happens. I know it comes down to greed and how people are running their countries and stuff like that. Even, for example, Indian, and I look, their wealth is quite immense right now, yet they still have so many millions and millions of people in poverty. It's just messed up, and I think that would be like, it's a basic human is dealt. I think that's the thing that affects me the most, is like, why are people still hungry?
I 100% agree, and I believe that we as entrepreneurs, every entrepreneur, I believe, has a responsibility to help make the world a little bit more net positive, is what I call. And so I refer to those people, the entrepreneurs that are also leveraging their success to make the world better, as enlightened entrepreneurs. And I even have it there on the nice. Wall down there, right? And I refer to them as enlightened entrepreneurs. I believe that you can leverage your success in some way to make the world a little bit better, and that is why even with New Brew, which is just like 3 months old, I've got it over there. It's 3 months old, almost to the day. From day one, like literally from launch, we had a charitable element baked in, and we support the charity Project Healthy Children, and we fortify the food of at least one child for at least a year with every single purchase. And we're on a mission to fortify 1 billion meals by 2025, and it's a 2 billion person problem is malnutrition. So we figure if we can do half of it and the rest of the world does the other half, then pretty cool. But the world, as we make our customers, as we help our customers achieve higher mental clarity, higher brain power, and achieve whatever it is that they're trying to achieve across sport and study and their jobs and their lives and their home life and homeschooling and all the rest of it. These people that can afford our products and they've got their nutrition sort of nailed, we can bring the people that haven't got their nutrition nailed a little bit higher, and so everybody moves up. And I believe, I practice what I preach, but I believe that as entrepreneurs we have a responsibility to make something like that into our business to improve the world. I'll get off my soapbox. Right. So there's the world problem. So there's a lot of people. So Badia says you're the man, and Glenn says he certainly is.
I love Glenn's picture, by the way.
I do as well. I also like the bend in the spine. I mean, that's a flexible.
The question is, does she weigh 7 kilograms? Because I can lift 7.
7 kilograms. Oh dear, I love that. It's going to make me chuckle, I think, every time I think about that. Right, I've got a couple of would you rather questions actually for you, Depesh. And here's one of them: would you rather always be 10 minutes late or always be 20 minutes early?
Well, since I'm mostly late for meetings, I think it'd be nice to be early for once. But the thing is, like, I think there's a mental block with how I've grown up that I can't deal with being early. Like, I just feel like it's a waste of time. I remember I turned up to a job interview, and I actually turned up about 20 minutes early, actually. And then I was 40 minutes early. So I went to a coffee shop nearby, sat there, and this was in Hammersmith actually, and I was sitting there having my coffee, and then I was just checking through emails, and then a calendar notification popped up to say you're 5 minutes away from your interview starting. I was like, oh shit. So I got there 10 minutes early, not 40, because I got the time wrong, and I had to sprint down this road. It was about 10 minutes away, and I literally just got there on time. I was panting, I was sweating. I had to really try and calm myself down. I actually did the Navy box breathing thing, which really worked to slow my heart rate down as well. But I can't do turning up early. Now, obviously, if I turned up early or late for that original appointment, it would have been a problem. So I don't know. I think I'd probably end up always being 10 minutes late. If I had to choose between the two, it's not good form, but yeah, that's probably who I am.
The other guy. All right. Sorry, no, this is the wrong one. Danny has jumped in. Remember, guys listening, you can just drop a comment in the box, and that will appear. Right? We can make it appear. Your comment, your question. But Danny says, how do you motivate a junior who has displayed great potential, where the junior is your lazy 18-year-old son?
I love that. So I only have a lazy 12-year-old son, so I can't quite relate or answer to that. However, I have hired lazy 18-year-old people as well. The thing is, like, you'll know this person better than anyone, and in terms of motivators and things like that, I'll give you an example. So I'm a big football fan. I played football, I've supported football, anything to do with football, I'm all over it. And when I had a son first, as my firstborn, I was so excited that I could share that passion with him. He doesn't like football. He's now 12. He's not really good at it. He doesn't have an interest in it. My 6-year-old son, he loves it, and it's great. And I think, that was a good lesson for me on understanding their motivators, that as much as I love that, he just wasn't into it. He loves science. He loves his Xbox. He loves talking nerdy stuff. He likes overanalyzing. And so I'm trying to figure out like what he can kind of get into. Like I said, he's shown an interest. Whenever I'm on a sales call, client call, anything like that, he listens in. He's asking me questions about Facebook and e-com and stuff like that. So if I can, he's motivated within that. I'll give you an example. When fidget spinners kicked off, he wanted me to buy a particular widget spinner, and I told him that actually you can buy this for a cost price at 1/10 of what he was seeing in the store. And I explained it to him, showed him AliExpress, showed him how you can take it off AliExpress, put it in your store and sell it. And he was amazed by it. And I think it's about unlocking what that thing is in that person. And if I look at my daughter, who's 10, she's not really into that kind of stuff, but she's super creative. When I'm actually in my office studio and shooting videos and stuff, she takes an interest. And I'd love for her to get involved in videoing and creatives and stuff like that. hey, by the end of it, I could end up with my own little mini agency team just with my family. But I think it's just figuring out those motivators, and trying to steer them into the right path. I guess, I'm not just say that I'm experienced with parenting. I'm still learning as I go, but that's kind of how I try and treat it as well.
It's a great question and a great answer. So, our friend Glenn says, "Do you have days where you have no motivation, and how do you turn it around?" I'd like to jump in on that as well because I can feel
Absolutely.
that life hacking efficiency angle. So, first up, fuck yes, everybody has days where they have no motivation, and that could be it could be something like predictable, like diet or something you've eaten. It could be that you've woken up to bad news, gone to sleep with bad news, had an argument in some way, had bad news, feeling overwhelmed, or all number of things. And definitely as entrepreneurs, you hit those highs and lows multiple times a day, right? To the point where your wife constantly calls you bipolar with a laugh on her face, but like semi checking symptoms. But to turn it around, which is your question, there's a number of things you can do to like shock your system into changing it. And by the way, I'm just gonna, like, full disclosure, I do know these answers and do practice it on a good day, but sometimes it can be super hard to practice what you preach when you're going through this. So bear that in
Absolutely.
mind as well. But one thing that I think is fantastic is changing your temperature. So this is kind of a proven method. Is changing your temperature, and so going from hot to cold, cold to hot. So a cold shower is a phenomenal way to do it, and it for a number of reasons, particularly when it's in the morning, right? If it's one of the early things you've done in the morning, it's like an early win because it doesn't really matter how many times you've done it. It's still a shock to the system when you crank your shower from a nice pleasant sort of a womb-like temperature down to freezing cold. But if you're me and you're a little bit goofy, you would turn it down to cold and you would let it hit your chest, right? So your thing, and and if you're goofy like me, you roar like a lion, like you're letting out a little bit there. Let that run for a little while, and then crank it back to hot, and enjoy the sort of the tingles as your body switches. But that's a really great way to move, to do that. Another way is with movement and rigorous movement. So one of the things that Tony Robbins does, for example, he has a little trampoline, and he goes to town on the trampoline. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to like shake up the water in his body, if you like. Imagine having a mildly fizzy liquid in a bottle, and you're trying to shake it up so that you're getting bubbles, right? So it's just about kind of dislodging the sort of liquid in your body, or imagine like a pond where the scum is just kind of floating on top, and it just needs a good shake up kind of thing to do it. So that's another thing as well. Just movement, some squats, some punches, some jumps, some burpees, some star jumps, just something to just kind of get your heart rate going a little bit.
Yeah.
And then if it's mental support you're after, then I think masterminds and mentorship programs and things like that are fantastic. But if you can't afford those, or for whatever reason you haven't got those, look to like seeking out some sort of digital mentors that don't necessarily know that you're using them as mentors. And one technique that I learned was taking using things like podcasts, for example, to listening to a lot of podcasts by the same person to sort of really begin to gauge how they make their decisions. And by doing that, you can kind of have like a Tony Robbins, a Tim Ferriss, whatever, like Roland Fraser, Cameron Harrod, whatever, like up there as your mentors, because you begin to understand how they think. Autobiographies also are another great way of doing that. And so then what you can do, you can literally print out photos of them, where you can see, and the things that you're struggling with or having trouble with, you can literally ask that question, and you can almost subconsciously begin to answer that question as the mentor, like, because you're beginning to know what they say. You kind of, in the same way that you might know what your wife's going to say when you say something to her, you begin to second guess what they're going to say, and you can get these different angles and different viewpoints that can help you. But certainly mentorship, mastermind, speaking to other people in a similar situation, similar people to you as well, is a great way of turning round a day where you don't have motivation. What are you going to add?
The only thing I'd add is one thing I found more recently is I turn my virtual reality device on, and I find something that's going to just feel away from happening around me. So, for example, even yesterday, I was feeling quite overwhelmed, and overwhelm leads to lack of motivation as well. And there's an app on the Oculus, so I've got the Oculus Quest, called Drunken Bar Fight. It's just so funny. You walk into a bar and you're just fighting, and it's funny, it's hilarious. You just beat people up, throw things at them, and I felt better after that. So yeah, I think it's that kind of stuff works. And then there's other games and stuff you can play, but sometimes that kind of just forgetting about the world around you and just doing something different helps. There's a Star Wars one with lightsaber fights, and it's just super cool, which I like to do as well. So sometimes just moving yourself out of your situation helps. Pretty much as you've said, get the heart pumping, do something to shake yourself up. It works.
I love that. Here's another one. What inspired you to be an entrepreneur, and what keeps motivating you to keep pushing forward?
This is an interesting one. So I've been asked before, like, what got you into entrepreneurship and stuff. And my thought was always in 2009, I was in the corporate world. I got made redundant, spent 3 months without a job, couldn't pay the bills, all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of the backstory that fired me into entrepreneurship, which was I had no job. I needed money. And so that's how I ended up in affiliate marketing, because that's the fastest and easiest way to make money. And it kind of still is as well, if you do it right. So that kind of got me into entrepreneurship, because until 2009, I was an employee, and that's all I ever wanted to be. That's all I ever knew to be. So that I'm thankful for that hard experience that I went through, which was deep depression and many other not so good things, kicked me into the world of entrepreneurship. And I can't imagine not being here. So I don't think it was so much motivation as much as a kick in the backside. But actually, as I started to share my backstory in my kind of younger life a lot more, I realized actually entrepreneurship was always there. So at 10 years old, me and my friend used to go car washing with a bucket and sponge. And we used to knock on neighbors' doors, and we used to charge them £2 a car wash, and would split £1 each. And that became our pocket money, because our families were poor. We never got treats and sweets and stuff like that. So that became our pocket money. We were making anywhere between 10 and £20 a week, which as a 10-year-old child buys a hell of a lot of sweets, I can tell you that. It also enabled me to buy a second-hand pair of Reebok. So back in my day, Reebok Pump was the shoe that everyone wanted. My parents could never afford it. I'd never ask anyway. But I saved up, I think it was like £20 for a second-hand pair of Reebok Pump. And that made me feel amazing, because all my friends had it, and now all of a sudden I had it as well. And I think if I look back, that was probably the entrepreneur that was always there in me. But that got covered by me going to school and university and being told that you work 9 to 5, you get an income, and that's pretty much life. So I think that's kind of the thing that got me into it. And then what keeps me going is I absolutely love what I do. I've been in many jobs where I haven't enjoyed it. I can decide what I do, what I sell, what I focus on. Right now, Glenn said he had pumps as well. Like right now, I have an agency, I have an info product business. I absolutely love teaching. Like, if there's one thing that I could do from everything I'm doing right now, is to do teaching. I love in-person masterminds. I love seeing the transformation in people and the feedback and stuff like that. So I absolutely love teaching, and I can make money out of it, which is even better. So I think that kind of stuff helps keep me motivated.
Great stuff. And so we've got time for maybe one or two questions more. I want to be respectful. We have well, I don't know if we've overrun officially, but we've certainly been going on for quite a long time. So back to the season 2 questions. What unusual or underrated food or drink should more people try out?
So I was speaking to my son about this today, actually. Oh, was it? No, sometime in this week.
It's all a blur, yeah.
Yeah, it is actually. The bins are supposed to be put out, because we don't usually do it, and it's like, I don't know what day it goes, what bin it is, whatever. But yeah, I think I was speaking to him about chapatis. I don't know if anyone eats Indian food, and wrapping a banana inside. It is so good. And like, he was like, oh, that's disgusting. And as it is with kids, you have to say, just try it and you'll see. And it's a bit of a weird mix, but it works. Just like putting a banana in foil and putting chocolate inside and putting a barbecue actually works really well as well. So yeah, that would be my little mini one.
Oh, that's awesome. Actually, that's not. I mean, that's not that weird. And before today, maybe I would have thought your suggestion was a little bit more unusual than it was. But I had a guest earlier on, a guy named Travis Sigler, who we had an awesome interview, and his answer to that question was taking a dill pickle spear. Let me get this right. Smearing crunchy peanut butter on it, putting it into like a hot dog bun, preferably gluten free. Okay, it's not so weird right now. And then dipping it into vanilla almond milk.
Okay, yeah, that's
And
weird.
I realize now I'm like miming eating that thing. You can get. I don't need to do the mime. Maybe two handed. That's better than one handed there. Particularly for the people on mute. But yeah, I mean it's a little bit weird. But again, he was like, don't knock it until you've tried it. And yes, it did initially come from it was a pregnant woman that thought up that particular meal in the first place. But he learned to like it. So final question, Depesh, and you've been amazing. But I absolutely want to ask you this, and I think it's super important. And so here it is. What makes you happiest?
I have to say, right now, it's my kids. Like everything I'm doing, everything I'm building for the future, and like for example, we learned early on to teach the kids the value of money. For example, so I remember where it felt like my youngest, who's now 12, was getting too many things that he wanted to the extent that it just became another object, or it wasn't so fun. I remember in my time, the first time I went from buying a cheeseburger as a kind of youngster to being told I could actually have a quarter pounder at McDonald's, and that for me was a huge milestone. Like, can I really have that? Do we have enough money for it? My kids just they didn't have that value, and we've worked really hard over the last 5 6 years to instill the values and stuff, and to make things a lot better. But I think just for me, the happiest part is seeing the smile on my kid's face, and it's moving away from buying them things and giving them experiences to just being present. That's the biggest thing I've learned with parenting is, and I take some of my learnings that my dad worked 24/7, 7 days a week, all that kind of stuff. We didn't see him that often. And he went through the phase that I almost went through, which was I want to provide for my kids. I want to earn enough money for them. I want to buy them what they want and stuff like that. But children just want their parents to be present. And I think that's the biggest thing that I learned. Like, for example, last summer, we went for, I think it was a 10-day cruise. And fortunately, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no cell signals. And so I had no choice but to switch off my tech and stuff. And we really, really enjoyed it. And I think that was a good experience because it allowed me or forced me to be 100% present. Even though sometimes I try and do it consciously, I'm always in the back of my mind thinking, I've got to go and check my Asana task list, or I've got this thing coming up and all that kind of stuff. But that was literally isolation on a boat in the sea, no choice but to be present with them. And that really just kind of fuels my fire and kind of builds a huge credit bank of motivation and everything as well.
Amazing answer to what has been a powerful, varied and diverse, but powerful, information-filled interview. At this point, just before we wrap up, Depesh, have you got any asks or requests of the audience?
No, not really. I think one thing I would say is, especially in the UK, like people are not taking this isolation thing seriously enough. So I don't know where people are at, whether they do believe it's a conspiracy, whether they don't. I've seen firsthand, like just this week, a good friend lost 3 people in her family. Another friend lost one of his close friends. I've been through the experience myself. Take this stuff seriously. I think that's just my takeaway. I think most of the people in the online communities that I'm in do get it, but just stay safe. Honestly, don't play around. It's your life at the end of the day, and the lives of the people around you as well.
I think that's a powerful statement. So those of you who are still live, thank you so much for taking the time. Please show your appreciation for Depesh and that he's taking the time by hitting those react buttons. If there was anything that you enjoyed in this show, there's a good chance that someone you know would also have enjoyed it and also have benefited from it. So even at this stage in the video, if you just tag them in the comments, they'll get a notification and they'll have the opportunity to watch back this video because it'll be on their newsfeed. And we've all got a little bit more time on our hands, but potentially, and so anything that actually gives value in this time that isn't in fact a Tiger King video is beneficial. Not that Tiger King. I mean, we went a whole interview with almost not mentioning it. Santosh says hi, Depesh and Martin. Hi Santosh, and Glenn says love the entire live stream. Thank you so much for both of you. We really appreciate your involvement, Glenn, and asking questions, and everybody else that's been involved.
Absolutely.
And everybody else that is watching this after the live stream. But for now, Depesh, thank you so much for taking the time this evening to share your value, to be authentic, to be hilarious, and to be the muscle man with your 7-kilogram ball as well. And yeah, exactly. And I hope that wasn't a body part that fell off during the corona thing, by the way. But yeah, dude, yeah. Once again, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you so much.
Absolutely. And guys, go and subscribe to Smarter Destiny. I don't know if you guys have seen the other interviews, but they're all absolutely ace. So thanks, Martin. And hopefully when this whole lockdown's over, I look forward to actually meeting you in person finally as well.
Yeah, I'll be 20 minutes late.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, man. Take care, and we'll speak again soon. Cheers, bye.